It's Melissa Peters here with DORN Companies, coming to you pain-free live to help you live pain and injury-free. Thanks for tuning in again today for another episode of the Injury Prevention Academy. On this show, we feature experts who provide insight into topics related to pain management, injury prevention, and ergonomics with the goal of helping you support the safety and well-being of your employees. For over 20 years, DORN has led the cutting edge of workplace safety solutions, offering holistic, proactive strategies to help organizations in all sectors reduce injuries, cut costs, and boost productivity. With an annual ROI of over 600% and a reach of over 100,000 employees, we've saved employers over $100 million in workers' compensation and healthcare claims and costs. Joining us today is Denise Pontbriand, a senior ergonomist for DORN Companies, and today we will be chatting about various approaches to addressing ergonomics in the workplace, as well as a little bit of talking about how that relates to those of you still working from home. So thanks, Denise, for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Yes. So I'm excited to talk with you today. I know that you have been part of the DORN team for quite some time and provide a lot of insight. So I want to start off with just kind of the basics, the general overview of ergonomics. I think we hear that term a lot. So can you just give us an idea of what it means when someone uses the word ergonomics?
Sure. The definition of ergonomics is basically the study of people's efficiency in their work environment. More specifically, my job as an ergonomist is to design the work to fit the worker, not the other way around. So, ergonomics is very multifaceted. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. So when I go out to do an assessment, I look at cognitive factors, which is perception, memory, reasoning, motor responses. Something that comes into mind is the aging workforce.
Okay.
Physical factors that include human anatomy and biomechanics and just physiology. Organizational factors, which is participation, cooperation, environment, and the socio-technical system, which is basically society's complex infrastructure and human behavior. How do we interact? And that's a big factor.
Okay. So when it comes to looking at the implementation of ergonomics, why does ergonomics matters for people out there who are working in a plant, or for people who are employers? Why should this matter to them?
Well, it does matter a lot, because an uncomfortable work environment can affect, your posture. It can affect, how, it can cause you to have an injury. So it's very, very important that we're comfortable. Now, when you've been working like at your desk for a period of time, you become easily fatigued, you start losing your posture. Well, we have 3 natural curves to our spine, and the whole goal is to basically help us, as you straighten up, help us maintain those natural curves to our spine as close as possible. So that is what I refer to as neutral working posture. So if you're slouching like this and your head's hanging forward, you've got 10 to 12 pounds now pulling on your spine, your back's going to start hurting. So it's a whole cascade of events that occurs. So my job as an ergonomist is to kind of get people to work in their most efficient posture and to educate them on what that is. So, going to musculoskeletal disorders, if they occur, they're very costly. So incorporating ergonomics in the workplace can remedy an uncomfortable atmosphere. Just making simple changes. It doesn't mean ergonomics. Some people equate ergonomics with expense, and it's not always expensive. It could be administrative changes of me recommending, geez, employee A might want a job share with employee B, and they're rotating them. So now they're less risk, but it didn't cost the company anything except a little training, which is not bad. So it's a win-win situation. The employer implements we make recommendations that I have made, and now their productivity is improving. The employee's happier, their production is better. So it's a win-win situation. Basically, in short, ergonomics produces a great product at the end. You've got a happier worker, you've got less absenteeism. It's a win-win situation.
Excellent. That definitely, I always laugh because anytime I have a conversation with someone about ergonomics, I often find myself going ahead and correcting myself because I think we can get, kind of, not lazy, but it can lose sight of being top of mind. So I always appreciate these times where I'm like, oh yes, let me think about that neutral posture. Because I
Right.
do know that improper ergonomics, so not having the right setup, can end up leading to not only pain but also injury. And so, can you speak to what is meant by an ergonomic related injury and the
So,
impact this has on not only the health of employees, but also just the bottom line for employers?
okay, well, an ergonomic injury would be anything that causes pain or dysfunction as a result, say, for example, of a static or an awkward posture or any of the risk factors that I'm going to speak on. It's very costly. So that has to be, reported as a workers' comp claim if the employee goes out because of pain and they can't function and do their job. So to give you an example on the latest findings, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics reports that the direct costs associated with one low back strain, and that's meaning no surgery has happened. It's basically they've had therapy, they've had a medical intervention. The cost on that is $32,319. Now, part of that cost is there's indirect costs associated with that. So legals, fees, anything that needs to support that claim. And that indirect cost is $35,550. So the total amount for that one workers' comp claim, low back, no surgery, is $67,869. So say, for example, the company that incurred this cost, your profit margin is, say, 3%. Well, that's going to take that company, to have to sell $2,262,300 worth of sales or product to recover the costs on that one claim.
Oh,
So there's great value in ergonomics. I don't cost that kind of money. Hiring
yeah.
ergonomics is not that expensive. So it's really great money to spend on the front end. I love when I'm hired on the front end where they're saying, hey, we want you to take a look at things. We haven't had any big needs, but we're trying to prevent that. That's awesome because now the company hasn't spent any money. A lot of times ergonomics, unfortunately, has been reactive, where they're getting us in because they've had incurred these costs. And my job, I would love to help companies understand that it's such reasonable money to spend to prevent those big amount of expenses, because low back injuries with surgeries are even a lot more money. So that's just one unit. There's carpal tunnels, there's all kinds of expenses, and this is all tracked. It's big money. So it's great to kind of think of looking at ergonomics as a great proactive preventative measure to reduce those costs associated with workers' comp claims.
Absolutely. Speaking just as someone who, on occasion, one of my roles with the company is to do business development, and seeing that and hearing that idea of having to recover from one claim and taking that much to replace what it would be, it really speaks to how important it is to be preventive and proactive versus reactive. So, building up on that, I really like this idea that ergonomics can get to the root cause of issues. It helps you identify things. Can you speak to how, you as an ergonomist, how assessments work to identify risk factors, and
Yep.
that how that relates to the prevention of, musculoskeletal disorders, pain, injury, and the like?
Yep. Well, basically, my job as an ergonomist is to go in and to look for that root cause of what is the problem. And, there's the word why I ask a lot. Well, because I have to find out why this doesn't happen. Why can't you use this? And they really get tired, but until I am satisfied why we can't do something a different way, that word why is brought up a lot. So my job is to look what are the root factors. When I go in and I look at different things associated with a problem area or what I've been hired to do, I'm looking at risk factors that are basically excessive force, repetitive movement, awkward or static postures that employees have to maintain to complete the task, Temperature. What is the temperature? I've been in one place that it's over 100 degrees. So temperature, external temperature does impact our bodies. Vibration, motion, inadequate recovery time. Is there any break in that work cycle? Is the employee doing any type of flexibility or micro breaks? The risk factors either can stand alone or in a combination of things. So my job as an ergonomist is kind of put that puzzle together and figure out what is the best course and how can we alleviate. Some jobs do require excessive temperatures. Well, what are the best, PPEs? There's all different things that we can come up with. There's always a plan. There's always a plan, and it doesn't mean that it has to be expensive. A lot of times I've gone in and said, well, have you tried this? And it's something that they can just readjust. And they're like, no, so a lot of times it's just getting another set of trained eyes on the situation to solve a problem.
I like that. And through your experiences, what of those risk factors, what are the top three that you see happening most frequently that you've observed?
Well, in my experience, awkward postures and just basically poor understanding of body mechanics, again, that neutral working posture, a lot of that, we develop habitual postures and we do it all the time. Like if you sit at your desk, some people cross their legs or some people sit to the side, and just explaining, it takes, I think I did some research on habits, and it basically takes 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks to learn a new habit, and it takes 48 hours to forget it. So practice is key. So making it become you, and like I sound a broken record when I'm on site. I'm like, hey, have you tried this? Tried it. Have you tried this? And then, because it has to become you, where you start feeling. Most people start adjusting their posture when they have pain. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be preemptive and prevent the pain. So, I hope that helps. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's just very insightful. And I love just hearing you speak about how, just giving the reinforcement, that idea that, 4 to 6 weeks to build a good habit, but 48 hours to forget it, I think is relatable to a lot of things in life and really speaks to the need for there to be programs in place to be preemptive. So, on that note, I'd like to just hear some typical approaches that can be taken to address ergonomic issues in the workplace. From non-quantitative to quantitative to software and technology solutions. Let's start off with the non-quantitative and what that means to do a non-quantitative ergonomic assessment.
Yeah, ergonomics has come a long ways. They're becoming more and more different availabilities. When I first became trained in ergonomics, it was basically that human going to the plant, and they've come so far in the last few years. So basically, non-quantitative means I'm going in and basically doing a mini assessment. So what I mean by that is I'm not taking out any OSHA tools like the ruler or the Reba. I'm going in, I'm using my eyes, my knowledge as an ergonomist, and I'm evaluating where are the risk factors. I may look at the work cycle, is it short or long, but I am not timing it out. I'm just basically going in. It's a nice snapshot. It provides the company a summary, basically a report, but not as detailed as I would with a regular quantitative report, but it gives exactly what the company needs, what changes need to have, long and short term. I'm always looking at administrative controls, which is basically what the company can do without spending money. So that's job rotation, job enhancement. Those are big changes. There's just things you can do as a company without expending a lot of money. And then there's engineering controls, which are basically where I'm making on all my reports. I have administrative controls and I have engineering. Hey, long term, we could use new tooling when money comes available. So they have a goal and they have a plan to meet, down the road. So that's basically.
So related to that, real quick, I know that you recently received your certification as a remote ergonomic assessment specialist. So, I know right now in present circumstances, we do have a lot of folks who are still working at home, whether, from their dining room table or in an office at home. Can you just speak to how an ergonomic assessment might look for a remote worker?
So that would be a non-quantitative assessment, and basically what it would involve is you would basically answer some questions. I would ask some pictures of you. So I can, a picture tells a lot, I might ask you a lot of questions. So basically they're going to get the same ergonomic assessment if I was standing near their desk in an office and they will be at home. We have great access to Zoom, and we use that technology. So they're basically going to get a report and basically some recommendations on what changes need to happen. So that's a great example of non-quantitative.
Okay, excellent. And so building on that, what happens when you go from non-quantitative to quantitative?
Okay, so quantitative is a more in-depth assessment, and basically you're using the screening tools that are appropriate for whatever I'm evaluating. So, there's different screening tools that we use as ergonomists, and you're basically looking at, the work cycle, how long is it? You're looking at the risk factors, you're measuring things. It's much more detailed, and it provides those quantitative measures to include to support recommendations that I would be making. So it's definitely, it can be the plant wide, or it can be a department specific, saying you're having a hot spot area that you notice you've got some problems, people are complaining of wrist pain. You might want to get a more detailed report. So it's whatever the company's needs are is what I basically would do, or basically whatever their budget. Sometimes it becomes a budget. As an ergonomist, I have been very, very well schooled on, we have no budget. Can you help us? And I can. We basically give me tell me the hot spots, and we'll go in and do an evaluation, and we will make recommendations. I'm very resourceful on what company's needs are, and sometimes even what they have in their plant that they can use, or in their office.
Absolutely. I love the innovation. And I know I speak with people very often about the idea that I can relate to budget struggles all too well, but seeing that cost of a claim earlier speaks to me that just avoiding one of those more than pays for any ergonomic support.
And that's, it's so important for them to really put those two pieces together, because it's cheap. I call it cheap money. It's money on the front end that you're preventing a big expense on the other side. So absolutely.
Absolutely. So another option for ergonomic support is software. So can you speak to some of the software that's out there that employers and employees can utilize?
Yep, there's I'm familiar with a good software for office workers, and basically it's a screening tool. It promotes education. It also is a self-analysis, so the company can use this and basically say they have people that score out in the medium or to high risk area. That's when I come into play. Where, well, what else is going on here? How can I better solve what's going on? Because there's risk factors that are associated, they haven't been able to solve them. So that's where I would come in. So that's a great tool. The company can act, especially with remote. You've got a lot of remote workers. It's a great tool, and you've also got ergonomic support to address those employees that are having clearly having a struggle.
Absolutely. And then I know it's somewhat of a new frontier, but over the last few years, there's been a lot of bioergo wearables that have entered the market. What's your experience or knowledge of what those offer to employers?
Well, it basically, they're fairly new. I have not had a huge exposure to it, but basically what they're providing to the employer is basically feedback on muscle overuse. So they basically don it's like a long sleeve t-shirt, and the same thing like long underwear, and they're working in these wearables, and basically it's computing how much certain muscles are overused. So there's hot zones, and we know that there's potential for an injury or high risk factors by wearing these wearables. It's actually pretty cool.
Yes,
So
I think that will be one area that it will be intriguing to watch the development and adoption of those over the next few years. I actually had the opportunity to speak with Matt Marino from HeroWear the other day, and it was a very intriguing conversation about the different types of, even exosuits and exoskeletons out there, as well as the other types of wearables. So I'm sure it's exciting in your field to see this develop and what it will bring to us.
Right.
So switching gears a little bit, that was a great overview of different solutions that are available. Now I want to talk about the impact that you've seen, because you've talked about the importance of it, why it matters. So let's talk about some concrete examples of how you've helped employers avoid those costs and injuries for employees.
Okay, so I've got a few cases that are happened recently. So one place I was asked to come in, there was a gentleman who had been working for this company for a long time. Um, the EH&S manager asked me to go evaluate this employee because he was reporting some wrist and elbow pain. So I went to watch him, and he had to run this machine with incredible bilateral controls. So basically, his arms were going like this constantly. And I observed him, and he also said he ran another machine. So I watched him on that machine, and it had the same kind of controls. So we basically, he had huge contact stress factors. He had poor wrist position, high risk for elbow and upper extremity, musculoskeletal disorders. So I enacted administrative control of job rotation. We talked to the department head. I said, I want any type of job that can reverse. This guy is flex forward at his job. I want something where he's opened up and reversing, standing up. So they put him in shipping, where he was basically working so many hours shipping and not doing that repetitive posture. Long-term control, the engineering controls I enacted was basically a redesign of this. There was a very old machinery he was running. So when monies became available, I gave him a plan of what should happen and involving engineering. So that was their long-term goal. But the cool thing is I did put him right into DORN therapy, and I followed up with him the next week. And he came over and he had a smile on his face. He's like, Denise, they had pulled him off the machine. He was, doing some stamping. He says, Denise, I feel so much better. I don't have near as much discomfort. It's just a little bit. I also told him self-care and how it was important he had to take micro breaks. So these were all, it was a win-win situation. That was a workers' comp avoided.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's a huge thing. That to me is, I'm psyched when I leave a plant and I know that someone's doing better and they didn't have to lose pay. The company didn't have to incur the cost of that. So it's a huge win-win. Another one that I just recently done was I went into an office setting, and they had a high amount of neck claims, and they wanted to know why. So I got on site and I started looking around. Well, it was kind of, not that it was funny, but it was kind of comical. Everyone had their office, because of security, they all had their monitors tucked in the corner because they didn't want, it was a privacy issue. So everyone was looking left. Everyone all day was looking left to their side. So of course they're getting neck pain because your monitor is meant to be straight on. So and amazingly, where their monitor was, it was low. So you had a lot of people looking left and bent forward. So I made some changes. They had a very low budget, which was okay. We made some changes. We used something to bring up the monitors. We adjusted it, and we explained to them. They said, well, it was privacy. So we ordered privacy shields. Now we could set up, no one can see the private. So that was real cool. And they didn't have any neck incidents after that. So it's things like that everyone goes to work, they don't realize what they're doing that is causing the problem. And neither does management sometimes. It's just the way the office was set up,
Yeah.
So, that's kind of thing. And more recently, I had a gentleman that was running a machine. He'd been there for a long time, and he started reporting shoulder pain. So he was using a mouse, a tall guy, and he has fully stretched out, and he was on that mouse a lot, just reaching out. So I talk a lot about the power zone. Anything you got to do a lot of, those elbows should be drawn in and your elbows are bent. So we adjusted his workstation. We sent zero money except for the cost of my Ergo Lite evaluation. And I followed up with him and a couple of weeks later, and he was fine. He was having no pain once we made these adjustments. Again, it's the lack of, you go to work, even as an office worker, you sit down in the chair, you don't make any adjustments, you just start doing your job. So, everyone's body is different. So it's really very simple things. Two of these, I gave you suggestions on basically administrative controls that needed to be addressed, and they're not expensive fixes.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And I agree with you 100%. I find myself sometimes not realizing something until you start getting that, like, oh goodness, I did not have my computer in the right place today, did I? So just having those reinforcements and the ability for someone to say, you know what, it's, let's just make this simple fix and then you're good to go.
Right,
And so
right.
that is just amazing. So, to wrap up, could you just provide our listeners with, the one major message or takeaway that you want them to walk away from this episode with?
Yeah, well, basically, I think I've kind of beat the drum, but Ergonomics program is an effective in reducing risk factors and becoming an important risk management tool. It's money well spent, like I said, on the front end to prevent costly musculoskeletal injuries, which will ultimately save the company money, improving their profit margin. And that's what it's all about, right? Your profit
Sounds like
margin.
a win-win for everyone involved. So, thank you so much, Denise, for taking some time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it, and we appreciate all of you out there who took the time to listen, and hope you gained some useful information, and tune in again in a couple of weeks for our next episode.